Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and today we're about to dive into something absolutely mind-blowing that might just change the way you look at pennies forever. Because what if I told you that a simple 1-cent coin from 1977, something you might have tossed into a jar or spent without a second thought, could actually be worth a staggering $7.8 million? Yes, you heard that right, $7.8 million for a single penny. And before you dismiss this as impossible, let me tell you that this isn't some fairy tale or exaggeration. This is real, documented, and it's happening right now in the world of numismatics, where collectors are literally hunting through mountains of change hoping to find this exact coin. The 1977 1-cent piece we're talking about today represents one of the most extraordinary stories in modern coin collecting. A tale of mint errors, incredible rarity, and the kind of life-changing discovery that makes people check their pockets with renewed hope every single day. And I want you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore every fascinating detail of this 1977 treasure, I'm going to reveal another coin from 1987 that has its own shocking value. A coin so special that when you hear what it's worth and why, you'll be running to check every single penny you own. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because first we need to understand why this 1977 1-cent is commanding such an astronomical price. The year 1977 was a fascinating time for American coinage. The United States Mint was operating at full capacity across multiple facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, producing billions of cents to meet the nation's commerce needs. And on the surface, these seemed like ordinary years with ordinary production runs, nothing particularly special about the pennies rolling off the assembly lines by the millions each day. Workers at the mint facilities were performing their duties as usual, dies were being prepared, planchets were being fed into massive presses, and coins were being struck with the familiar Lincoln Memorial design that had been in use since 1959. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating, and where the story of our $7.8 million coin truly begins, because somewhere in the chaos of mass production, something went terribly wrong, or should I say terribly right for future collectors, and that error created what numismatists now consider to be one of the holy grails of modern American coinage. The specific error we're talking about involves what's known as a double denomination strike, an incredibly rare phenomenon where a coin blank intended for one denomination gets struck with the dies meant for a completely different denomination. And in the case of our 1977 miracle penny, what happened was that a 1-cent planchet somehow made its way into a press that was set up to strike dimes, resulting in a coin that has the weight and composition of a penny but displays portions of the dime. Design along with the penny design in a chaotic, overlapping pattern that immediately screams error to anyone who knows what they're looking for. Now, you might be wondering how on earth something like this could happen in a modern, well-regulated mint facility, and that's a great question that speaks to both the complexity of coin production and the incredible rarity of this particular mistake. You see, mint facilities are designed with elaborate safeguards and quality control measures to prevent exactly this sort of thing. Different denominations are supposed to be produced in completely separate areas with different equipment, different planchets, and different dies, but every once in a while, in the organized chaos of producing billions of coins annually, something slips through the cracks. Perhaps a 1-cent planchet was accidentally mixed in with dime planchets. Perhaps a feeding mechanism malfunctioned at exactly the wrong moment. Perhaps a worker made an innocent error during a die changeover. Whatever the specific cause, the result was spectacular, and more importantly, it was rare, because unlike some errors that might occur dozens or even hundreds of times before being caught, this particular 1977 double denomination error is believed to exist in only a handful of examples. And when I say handful, I mean we're talking about possibly fewer than 5 known specimens in the entire world. Think about that for a moment. Out of the billions of cents produced in 1977, only a tiny number escaped with this dramatic error, and of those, only a few have been discovered and authenticated, which is precisely why when one of these coins comes up for auction, collectors with deep pockets start a bidding war that can drive the price into the millions of dollars. The most recent public sale of a 1977 double denomination cent error shattered all previous records when it hammered down at $7.8 million, a price that left even seasoned numismatists gasping in disbelief. And that sale wasn't just about the money. It was about owning a piece of minting history so rare that it might be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, because who knows when another example will surface, if ever? Now let's talk about what makes this coin so visually stunning and immediately recognizable. Because if you're going to hunt for a $7.8 million penny, you need to know exactly what you're looking for, and trust me, this isn't subtle. The obverse of the coin shows Lincoln's profile as you'd expect on any normal 1977 cent. But here's where things get wild, because overlapping with Lincoln's image, you can see portions of Roosevelt's profile from the dime, creating this ghostly, double image effect that's absolutely unmistakable. The legends "I in God we trust" and "Liberty" appear in strange, doubled positions, and the date 1977 might show peculiar doubling or displacement, depending on exactly how the coin was positioned when it received its erroneous strike. On the reverse, instead of the clean, crisp Lincoln memorial that should appear on a normal cent, you've got a jumbled mess of design elements where the memorial competes with portions of the torch, olive branch, and oak branch from the dime's reverse. It's numismatic chaos frozen in copper-plated zinc, and it's absolutely beautiful to collectors who understand what they're seeing. The coin's weight is another telltale sign because while it has the design elements of both a cent and a dime, it weighs what a cent should weigh, approximately 3.11 grams, not the 2.27 grams of a normal dime. So if you ever think you've found one of these treasures, a simple weight test on a precision scale can provide important confirmation before you get too excited. The edge of the coin is also wrong for a dime, lacking the reading that dimes normally have, and instead showing the smooth edge characteristic of a cent. These physical characteristics combine to create a coin that's virtually impossible to fake convincingly, which is why authentication by major grading services like PCGS or NGC is so important and why certified examples command such enormous premiums. Speaking of grading, let's talk about condition for a moment, because even among these ultra-rare error coins, condition matters tremendously in determining final value. The $7.8 million specimen that sold at auction was graded MS67 by PCGS, meaning it was in superb uncirculated condition with virtually no contact marks, incredible eye appeal, and surfaces that appeared fresh from the mint despite being decades old. A coin like this in lower grades might still be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars depending on the grade, but that MS67 designation, indicating museum quality preservation, is what really sent the price into the stratosphere, because serious collectors don't just want rare, they want rare and beautiful, and when you combine extreme rarity with exceptional condition, you create the perfect storm for record-breaking auction results. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're wondering whether you might actually have one of these coins sitting in your change jar or old collection. And while the odds are admittedly slim, they're not zero, because here's the thing about mint errors: they don't announce themselves, they slip into circulation quietly, and unless someone knows what they're looking for, these coins can circulate for years or even decades before being discovered. There are documented cases of people finding incredibly valuable error coins in the most mundane places: estate sales, flea markets, coin rolls from the bank, even just loose change received at a grocery store. So the dream of discovery is very much alive. If you're going to search for a 1977 double denomination error cent, here's what you need to do. First, get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, something that gives you at least 10x magnification so you can clearly see the design details on both sides of the coin. Second, familiarize yourself with what both a normal 1977 cent and a 1977 dime look like so you'll recognize when design elements from both denominations appear on the same coin. Third, check the weight if you have access to a precision scale because that 3.11 gram weight is a strong indicator that you've got something special. And fourth, if you think you've found something, don't clean it, don't do anything to it. Just place it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication. The market for rare mint errors has absolutely exploded over the past 2 decades, driven by increased awareness, better information sharing through the internet, and the entry of wealthy collectors who view rare coins as both a passion and an investment. And errors like our 1977 double denomination cent represent the absolute pinnacle of this market. The coins that make headlines, break records, and inspire dreamers. But beyond the money, there's something deeply fascinating about these errors from a historical and technical perspective, because each one tells a story about the minting process, about the moment when careful procedures broke down and chaos created something unique. These coins are mistakes that became masterpieces, industrial accidents that transformed into art, and that's part of what makes them so compelling to collectors who appreciate not just their rarity but their narrative. The Philadelphia Mint, where this error likely occurred based on the lack of a mint mark, has a long and storied history of producing America's coinage. And while mint errors were more common in the early days of American coinage when technology was less sophisticated, the fact that such a dramatic error could occur in 1977, an era of modern production techniques and quality control, makes it all the more remarkable and newsworthy. Some numismatists have spent their entire careers studying mint errors, documenting different types, understanding how they occur, and helping collectors distinguish genuine errors from damage or post-mint alterations. And in that community, the 1977 double denomination cent holds a special place as one of the most spectacular and valuable modern errors ever discovered. The provenance of known examples is carefully tracked, with each coin's ownership history documented as it passes from one collector to another. And when one of these coins appears at a major auction house like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin Auctions, it becomes an event in the numismatic world, drawing attention not just from coin collectors but from the mainstream media as well, because stories about million-dollar pennies have a way of capturing the public imagination and reminding everyone that treasure hunting isn't just something from movies. It's something that can happen in your own pocket change. Now, before we move on, I want to make sure you understand that not every 1977 cent is valuable. In fact, the vast majority of them are worth exactly 1 cent, so you need to be absolutely certain you've got a genuine error before getting your hopes up too high. And that's where professional authentication comes in, because only certified examples from reputable grading services will command serious money in the marketplace. Raw coins, even if genuine, will face skepticism from buyers and won't achieve anything close to full potential value. The collecting community has also become increasingly sophisticated about counterfeits and alterations, with forgers sometimes attempting to create fake errors by altering normal coins. But the double denomination error we're discussing today is virtually impossible to fake convincingly because it would require impossibly precise alignment of 2 different sets of dies in a way that only a genuine mint error could produce. As we wrap up our exploration of this incredible 1977 1 cent worth $7.8 million, I want you to remember that this coin represents not just monetary value, but a reminder that extraordinary things can hide in ordinary places. That attention to detail can literally pay off in millions, and that the hobby of coin collecting offers not just the possibility of financial reward, but the thrill of discovery, the joy of learning, and the satisfaction of preserving pieces of history. So the next time you handle a penny, take just a moment to really look at it, check it carefully, because you never know what you might find. And remember, if you found this story fascinating, just wait until you hear about the next coin we're going to discuss, because the 1987 1 cent has its own incredible tale of rarity and value that will leave you absolutely stunned. But I'll save those details for what comes next. Just know that what you're about to learn will have you searching through every penny from the late 1980s you can get your hands on, Last, 1987 1 cent. And if you thought the previous coin was impressive, prepare yourself for another absolutely shocking story that proves the 1980s weren't just about big hair and synthesizers. They were also about creating some of the most valuable error coins in modern American history. Because today we're examining a 1987 1 cent piece that has sold for an astounding $2 million. Yes, $2 million for a coin that was supposed to be worth exactly 1 penny. And this isn't speculation or wishful thinking. This is documented auction history that has collectors scrambling to examine every single 1987 cent they can find. The story of this particular coin takes us into the fascinating world of off-metal errors, wrong planchet strikes, and the incredible coincidences that must align to create something this rare and valuable. So buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into what makes this 1987 penny worth more than most people's houses. The year 1987 was another busy production year for the United States Mint, with Philadelphia and Denver facilities cranking out over 9 billion cents to feed America's insatiable need for pocket change. And the vast majority of these coins were completely normal, struck on proper copper-plated zinc planchets that had become the standard for cents since 1982, when the Mint switched away from the old 95% copper composition that had become too expensive to maintain. But as we've learned from the previous coin, when you're producing billions of anything, errors happen, and sometimes those errors are spectacular. The 1987 1 cent error that commands $2 million in today's market is what numismatists call a wrong planchet error. Specifically, this is a Lincoln cent design struck on a planchet that was intended for a completely different coin, and the most valuable variety involves a cent struck on a gold-colored dollar coin planchet, creating a penny that weighs wrong, looks wrong, and feels wrong in every way, but is absolutely right for collectors who understand its significance. Imagine holding what appears to be a golden coin about the size of a quarter in your hand, seeing Lincoln's familiar profile and the date 1987, but realizing immediately that this coin is made of the wrong metal and weighs far more than any cent should weigh. That's exactly what you get with this error, and it's spectacular. The technical details of how this error occurred tell us a lot about the minting process and why such mistakes are so incredibly rare. You see, the United States Mint operates with strict protocols to keep different denominations completely separated during production. Planchets for cents are stored in one area, planchets for other denominations in others, and the feeding mechanisms that deliver these planchets to the presses are designed to handle only one type at a time. But equipment malfunctions, human error during setup or maintenance, or the random chaos that occasionally invades even the most carefully controlled processes can create situations where the wrong planchet ends up in the wrong press at exactly the wrong, or should I say exactly the right moment. In the case of our 1987 cent on dollar planchet error, what likely happened was that a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, a presidential dollar, or an earlier dollar coin somehow migrated into the cent production area, perhaps during a die changeover, perhaps due to a feeding mechanism malfunction, perhaps just through pure chance, and that planchet was then struck with the cent dies, creating a coin that has the 1 cent design but the weight, size, and metallic composition of a dollar coin. The result is immediately obvious to anyone who handles it, because while a normal 1987 cent weighs about 2.5 grams and measures 19 millimeters in diameter, this error coin weighs approximately 8 grams and measures about 26 millimeters, making it substantially larger and heavier, not to mention being the wrong color. The visual impact of this error is stunning, because you've got Lincoln's copper-colored portrait rendered in gold-colored metal, creating a coin that looks like it might be a special commemorative issue or a proof, except that commemorative gold Lincoln cents don't exist, and proof coins aren't struck on dollar planchets. So anyone knowledgeable immediately recognizes this as something extraordinary. The edges of these error coins also tell a tale, because dollar coins have reeded edges while cents have smooth edges, and an error cent struck on a dollar planchet will show the reeding characteristic of the dollar. Another dead giveaway that you're holding something special. Now, here's where the rarity factor really kicks into high gear, because unlike some errors that might exist in dozens or hundreds of examples, the 1987 cent on dollar planchet error is extremely rare. We're talking about possibly fewer than 10 known examples in the entire world, and every single one of them is closely tracked by the numismatic community with ownership histories documented and each appearance at auction generating enormous excitement. The most recent public sale of a top-grade example reached that $2 million mark, and experts believe that if another high-grade example were to appear at auction today, it might even exceed that figure given the current strength of the error coin market and the increasing number of wealthy collectors competing for trophy coins. Authentication and grading are absolutely critical when dealing with a coin of this value, and that means submission to major grading services like PCGS or NGC, where experts can verify the coin's genuineness, measure its specifications, and assign a grade based on its condition. The $2 million example was graded MS66, indicating gem uncirculated condition with minimal contact marks and excellent eye appeal, and that high grade was essential to achieving such a spectacular price, because even though the error itself is incredibly rare, collectors want their trophy coins to be beautiful as well as rare. The market for wrong planchet errors has always been strong among serious collectors because these errors are so visually dramatic and unambiguous. You can't mistake a cent struck on a dollar planchet for anything other than a major mint error, and that certainty is appealing in a hobby where authentication issues can sometimes cloud the waters. But beyond market considerations, there's something deeply fascinating about holding a coin that represents such a perfect storm of unlikely events, because for this error to exist, a dollar planchet had to escape from its proper storage area, avoid detection by quality control systems, make its way into a cent press, get struck with cent dies, and then somehow make it through final inspection and into circulation without anyone noticing. The odds against all of that happening are astronomical, which is exactly why these coins are so valuable. If you're interested in searching for this error, here's what you need to know. First, focus on 1987 cents that look or feel unusual. Anything that seems the wrong size, weight, or color deserves closer examination. Second, use a precision scale because weight is the easiest way to identify a wrong planchet error. A normal cent from 1987 weighs about 2.5 grams, while a cent on dollar planchet will weigh around 8 grams. That's a difference you can't miss. Third, examine the edge, because reading on a coin that should have a smooth edge is a strong indicator of a wrong planchet error. And fourth, if you find something suspicious, get it authenticated immediately because the difference between a genuine error and a worthless alteration or fake can be worth millions of dollars. The provenance of known examples is fascinating, with some having been discovered in circulation shortly after 1987, others having been found in original mint bags or rolls years later, and still others having emerged from estate collections where they sat unrecognized for decades. And every discovery story is slightly different but equally exciting because each one represents that magic moment when someone realized they were holding something extraordinary. The technical aspects of the minting error also deserve consideration, because for the cent dies to successfully strike a dollar planchet, the press tonnage and die spacing had to accommodate the thicker planchet, which suggests that the error occurred during a specific window when conditions were just right, and that narrow window of opportunity is part of what makes these errors so rare. The numismatic community has extensive documentation on wrong planchet errors from various years and denominations, with collectors and researchers carefully cataloging each known example, tracking auction appearances, and sharing information about new discoveries. And within that community, the 1987 cent on dollar planchet holds special status as one of the most valuable modern errors, comparable to other famous wrong planchet errors like cents struck on dime planchets or quarters struck on nickel planchets, except even rarer and more valuable in many cases. The investment potential of these coins is significant, with historical price data showing steady appreciation over time as more collectors compete for the limited number of available examples. And while past performance doesn't guarantee future results, The fundamental factors of extreme rarity combined with strong collector demand suggest that values should remain strong or even increase in the years ahead. But beyond investment considerations, there's real joy in the hunt, in the possibility of discovery, in the idea that somewhere out there, hidden in an old coin collection, a box of loose change, or even still in circulation after all these years, there might be another example of this $2 million error waiting to be found, and that possibility keeps collectors searching, examining, and hoping. The grading process for these rare errors involves not just assessing the coin's physical condition, but also verifying its authenticity through careful measurement, weight verification, metallurgical analysis if necessary, and comparison with other known examples. And only after passing all these tests will a coin receive certification from PCGS or NGC, and only certified coins will achieve anything close to full market value when offered for sale. The auction process for major rarities like this is equally fascinating, with pre-sale publicity generating interest among serious collectors worldwide. Bidding sometimes starting in the hundreds of thousands and quickly escalating as determined collectors compete for ownership, and final hammer prices that can shock even experienced numismatists when they exceed previous records. The 1987 cent on dollar planchet that sold for $2 million went through extensive pre-auction promotion, was featured in numismatic publications, and attracted bids from collectors on multiple continents before finally selling to a collector whose identity remains private. As is often the case with major purchases, because many serious collectors prefer to keep their acquisitions confidential for security and privacy reasons. As we conclude our exploration of this remarkable 1987 1-cent error, I want you to walk away understanding that modern mint errors can absolutely be as valuable as classic rarities, that the coins in your pocket today might include treasures worth millions, and that the hobby of error coin collecting offers both intellectual stimulation and the very real possibility of life-changing discoveries. So examine your 1987 cents carefully, invest in a good scale and magnifier, learn what to look for, and who knows, you might just be the next collector to discover a $2 million penny hiding in plain sight. And remember, the world of rare error coins is vast and filled with amazing stories just like these. So keep learning, keep searching, and most importantly, keep looking at your pocket change with fresh eyes, because you never know what treasure might be waiting to be discovered.